All right, let's talk about one of the most common habits in teaching. It's something we do so often, we probably don't even think about it. But what if that one little habit is actually, well, fundamentally flawed? Today, we're going to dig into how we can stop guessing if our students get it and start knowing. Yep, there it is, that classic question. We've all said it, we've all heard it a million times. It's the sign that, okay, we're about to move on to the next thing. But this question, as harmless as it seems, is hiding a huge problem right under our noses. You heard that right. When you look at the research and what happens in highly effective classrooms, this question consistently ranks as the least effective way to figure out what students actually know. It doesn't just fail to get you good information, it actually creates a false sense of security in the classroom. So why does it fail so spectacularly? Because it's a form of what the educator Doug Lemov calls instructional guessing. It's that moment where you ask a big, general question, you're met with silence, and you're forced to just guess that everyone's on board. And let me tell you, that guess, it's almost always wrong. See, here's the absolute heart of the problem. Silence is not data. It's just silence. So when a teacher moves on based on nothing but that quiet, they're basically building the second story of a house on a foundation they never even checked. It feels secure in the moment, sure, but it's an illusion that leads to some serious learning gaps down the road. So to fix this, we have to understand the why. Why do students, even when they are totally and completely lost, just stay quiet? Well, it turns out the reasons are buried in some pretty powerful psychological barriers. One is cognitive and the other is emotional. First up, the cognitive barrier. You've probably heard of this one, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Basically, the idea is that you need a certain amount of knowledge just to recognize that you're confused. If you don't have that base level of understanding, you literally don't know what you don't know. And this is where it gets really tricky. The students who are struggling the most, the ones who need the most help, are the least likely to even realize they should have a question. They can't report a problem that they don't have the expertise to even identify in the first place. So asking them to self-report, it just doesn't work. And then there's the second barrier, which is just, well, it's human nature, right? Nobody wants to be the one person who looks foolish or slows the whole class down. Students will often stay quiet just to avoid that feeling of embarrassment. For them, the social risk just feels way too high. Okay, take a look at this chart. It really lays out the whole spectrum. Way over on the left, you've got student self-report, which we now know is super unreliable. But as you move to the right, you start to see methods like targeted questioning and whole class response that give us much, much better data. Our goal is to show you how to live on the right side of this chart. So how do we make that jump? How do we get over to the right side of that chart? Well, there's a fantastic, actionable technique from Doug Lemov called Replace Self-Report. It's a simple framework with 3 clear strategies to get real, solid data on what your students understand. And listen, this isn't about some massive philosophical overhaul of your teaching. We're talking about 3 concrete, manageable actions that can immediately start moving your classroom from a place of guessing to a place of knowing. So what are they? First, asking sharp, targeted questions instead of those vague ones. Second, learning how to optimize wait time to give brains a chance to think. And third, using simple tools for universal data gathering so you hear from everyone at once. Let's break each one down. First up, targeted questioning. Just look at the difference here. Does everyone get exponents? That's a guess. You learn nothing. But asking, if the exponent is 0, what will the answer always be? Boom, that's a diagnostic tool. It probes for a specific piece of knowledge and gives you actual evidence of who gets it and who doesn't. All right, on to strategy number 2. I want you to guess something. What do you think is the average amount of time a teacher waits after asking a question before they call on someone or just answer it themselves? The research says it's this: less than 1 second. That's barely enough time to even register the question, let alone come up with a thoughtful answer. But just watch what happens when we stretch that wait time to an optimal 3 to 5 seconds. The results are kind of staggering. Participation goes way up, the quality of the answers gets so much better, and the whole environment becomes more equitable because it gives every single student time to think. It's a total game changer. So our first 2 strategies are great, but they often still rely on hearing from one student at a time. That's where our third strategy, universal data gathering, comes into play. The goal here is to get data from everyone, all at the same time, using really simple but powerful tools like mini whiteboards, quick guided problems, or even just hand signals. What all these tools do is solve the sampling problem. You're not just calling on one kid who raised their hand and hoping they represent the other 29. Instead, you get an immediate, full class snapshot of exactly who's with you and who needs a little more help. You know. So when you start weaving these three things together, asking better questions, waiting just a bit longer for the answers, and then getting a response from everyone, you fundamentally change the entire dynamic of the classroom. You're no longer operating on assumptions, you're making smart instructional decisions based on real, actionable data. It really boils down to the simple comparison. The guessing model on the left is where you ask, you assume, and you move on, kind of hoping for the best. But the knowing model on the right, that's where you check, you see the data for yourself, and you adjust your instruction in real time. It's responsive, it's effective, and it's how you make sure no one gets left behind. And that's really the big idea here. This is about making a professional shift, moving away from instructional guessing, from just going with your gut, and toward diagnostic certainty. It's about having the confidence that comes from knowing exactly what your students know and what they need from you next. So, I'll leave you with this challenge. Think about your lesson for tomorrow. What is the one targeted, specific question you can plan to ask that will replace any questions? What's the one question that will give you real data? Because making that single shift, well, that's the most powerful first step you can take on the path from guessing to knowing.